Coming up on Network Africa. An opposition group rejects ECOWAS power-sharing government proposal aimed at ending the political crisis in Mali. Ex-wife of Liberia's former president, Charles Taylor, returns to Liberia. Plus, Kenyan Senator Johnson Sakaja to be charged with flouting COVID-19 curfew. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Teniola Shoboale. From major developments surrounding the COVID-19 pandemic in Africa to the world celebrating Nelson Mandela Day, we begin today with stories and happenings that made headlines over the weekend.
On Sunday, Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Geoffrey Onyeama, announced that he has tested positive for COVID-19. The minister, who revealed this on his Twitter handle, said that he went for a test after a symptom of throat irritation and that the test came back positive for the virus. According to him, this was his fourth COVID-19 test. Mr. Onyeama becomes the latest high-profile Nigerian who has tested positive for COVID-19. He has now gone into isolation for treatment and has been the country's Minister of Foreign Affairs since 2015. On Saturday, South Africa and the world celebrated Nelson Mandela International Day, an annual event in honor of Nelson Mandela, celebrated every year on the 18th of July, Mandela's birthday. Speaking at the 18th Nelson Mandela Annual Lecture via video link in New York, the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres said that the pandemic has demonstrated the fragility of the world, talking also about the anti-racist movement that shook the world.
The anti-racist movement that has spread from the United States around the world in the aftermath of George Floyd's killing is one more sign that people have had enough. Enough of inequality and discrimination that treats people as criminals on the basis of their skin color. Enough of the structural racism and systematic injustice that deny people their fundamental human rights.
Meanwhile, in South Africa, some chefs cooked up a soup storm to mark Mandela Day and fed thousands of people in need, preparing thousands of liters of soup for people in vulnerable communities, which has been the hardest hit by economic hardship and economic difficulties exacerbated by the coronavirus pandemic. Hundreds of chefs across several cities managed to produce over 70,000 liters of soup to feed 300,000 people. Still on Saturday, Libya's internationally recognized Government of National Accord, GNA, moved fighters closer to Sirte, a gateway to Libya's main oil terminals that the GNA says it plans to recapture from the eastern-based Libyan National Army. Witnesses and GNA military commanders said a column of about 200 vehicles moved eastward from Misrata along the Mediterranean coast towards the town of Taguega, about a third of the way to Sirte. The GNA recently recaptured most of the territory held by the LNA in northwest Libya, ending Eastern Commander Khalifa Haftar's 14-month campaign to take the capital Tripoli before the new front line solidified between Misrata and Sirte.
To our main stories now, an influential opposition group in Mali has rejected a proposal by regional mediators aimed at ending a political crisis in the country. ECOWAS is proposing a power-sharing government and a new constitutional court following huge demonstrations that have been calling for President Ibrahim Boubacar Keita's resignation. President Keita had already made a similar offer, which was rejected by the opposition protest movement. The demonstrators are insisting he steps down, saying he has failed to address jihadist violence, corruption, and Mali's economic challenges. Joining us now to discuss more on this is Professor Bola Akintanewa, the Director General of the Polytech Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies. Thank you, Professor, for joining us on Network Africa.
Thank you.
So what do you make of the escalating political crisis in Mali, and with this latest development of the opposition's rejection of ECOWAS's proposal of a power-sharing government?
I see the rejection as a major challenge with very serious implications. First of all, as a challenge, there is an African principle at the level of the African Union, which allows regional organizations to, first of all, ensure that there is peace, that conflicts are resolved at the regional level before the attention of the continental organization, the African Union, is brought in. The ECOWAS, in this case, has done well to have actually come in to find solutions. That rejection now is necessarily a challenge, a rejection to the authority of the regional body. The second one is that when you take a look at the challenge, it raises the fundamental issue of the insurgency, particularly in the northern part of Mali. Now, when you reject a proposal offering that there should be power sharing, in this particular case, then you are ultimately now imposing your own limited, and I wouldn't say selfish, solution to it. ECOWAS has a non-partisan approach. So in this case, it's a challenge in terms of how to maintain regional peace and security. But when you look at it in terms of implications, the challenge necessarily toughens the crisis. You know, is as I've said, it's a disregard to the position of the ECOWAS. Thirdly, it's a rejection of the position of France, because France, as a former colonial master, has been supporting the de facto and also the de jure government in place. So that particular rejection not only sets aside the position of the ECOWAS, but also that of France. It is also a call, it's a rejection trying to directly call for good governance in Mali. And more importantly, I look at it in terms of Mali having acceded to national and international sovereignty in 1960, and in 2020, we are still talking about democratic elections, all these problems. So these implications actually are very thought-provoking.
Yeah, Professor Akintanewa, there's so much to look at here, and, our eyes have to be on Mali, because this can escalate anyhow, but, we will be speaking to you more as this situation develops. Professor Bola Akintanewa, the Director General of the Polytech Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies. Thank you so much for joining us on Network Africa.
Thank you.
Now, the ex-wife of Liberia's former president, Charles Taylor, Agnes Reeves Taylor, has returned to the country after a UK court dismissed war crimes charges against her 7 months ago. She was charged in 2017 over a string of offences, some involving children, during the West African country's civil war, which she denied wrongdoing. Her ex-husband is currently serving a life sentence for war crimes in Sierra Leone. Supporters of Mr. Taylor's National Patriotic Party have been expressing their joy on a return to Liberia on social media, still regarding her as the founding mother of the former ruling party. It's unclear whether Ms. Reeves Taylor, a former university lecturer, intends to get involved in Liberian politics. Away from politics now, Ethiopia's giant hydroelectric dam is affecting environmentalists and fishing communities on the shores of Kenya's Lake Turkana, the world's biggest desert lake. The fishermen especially are complaining of dwindling fish stocks and are no doubt convinced that Grand Dam on River Omo is to blame because the dam feeds the lake.
For more than a decade, Ika Angele has been fighting for the survival of Lake Turkana, the world's largest desert lake. In 2012, she won the Goldman Environmental Prize, often referred to as the Nobel Peace Prize for the Environment. She blames dwindling fish stocks on Jaib 3, a giant hydroelectric dam built by Ethiopia on River Omo, which feeds the lake.
For a long time, we've been fighting against the destruction of Lake Turkana as a whole, not only against the Gibe 3 dam, but also with the fisher folk in terms of fishing and how they fish, whether it's undersized fishing, issues of sanitation and various things. So we've been working with, not only as an organization, working on policy issues, but working with the communities, the fisher folk communities within the Lake Turkana.
The 38-year-old who grew up on the shores of Lake Turkana says the impact of the dam and climate change have been huge.
At one point you have the lake totally receding and no fish, and then at one point you have a flooding of the lake, and that means the villagers who reside near the lake have to move. So that's the one impact. The second one is the increased conflict, because when there's resources, the fish are reducing, people start to fight for it, and that it leads to people going into fishing in protected areas, into breeding zones, and creates a lot of conflict.
Hundreds of thousands of people depend on the lake and the River Omo. Laluko's family has fished here for as long as he can remember. The shrinking lake and growing population have made it difficult to eke out a living. He fears there will be no fish left for his grandchildren.
I've been fishing for the last 8 years. Our parents used to fish just like our fathers. There was a lot of Nile perch, but very few fishing boats. Now we have more people fishing and lots of fishing boats that can go out to the deep sea, no longer at shoreline like they used to. So we are now seeing the Nile perch stocks drastically reduce.
In 2018, the UN Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization's World Heritage Committee, UNESCO, added Lake Turkana to the list of endangered World Heritage Sites.
South Africa will continue to work towards building relations with strategic partners such as Nigeria. The comment was made by the South African High Commissioner to Nigeria, Ambassador Thami Msekelu, in the wake of the 18th Nelson Mandela Annual Lecture, which held virtually for the first time since its inception. Ambassador Msekelu says he hopes to improve confidence levels between the two countries to levels seen before the administrations of Thabo Mbeki of South Africa and Olusegun Obasanjo of Nigeria.
One of the key mechanisms is for governments, the two governments, to constantly monitor the situation, and therefore they've both actually established what is called the mechanisms that would actually give us a sense of what is happening immediately, and also to share information with regard to criminality and so on. But critical to this is an understanding of between people. And so we have to actually ensure that the people-to-people relations are improved more than the government-to-government relations, which in fact are generally good, but people-to-people relations are still very much challenging. But of course, that is actually related to elements of criminality, as you have said, from both sides, both South African citizens that actually exploit situations of unease by various people, as well as some of the criminal elements that besmirch the beautiful name of Nigerian citizens. So those are the things that we should focus on.
You can watch more of that interview with Ambassador Thami Msekelu on Nigeria-South Africa relations and South Africa post-Mandela on Diplomatic Channel this week. It airs Monday, 7:30 p.m, DSTV Channel 254, UK Sky Channel 575. You can also watch online at channelstv.com. Still ahead on Network Africa. Mountain gorillas in the Democratic Republic of Congo are under threat as the economic impact of the coronavirus pandemic increases poaching. Details in a moment. Stay with us. We begin our coronavirus coverage with the latest figures from across Africa. The continent now has 721,871 cases. From that figure, more than 380,000 people have recovered, and the death toll stands at over 15,000. South Africa still has the highest number of cases in Africa, with 364,328. It's followed by Egypt with 87,775, then Nigeria with 36,663. Ghana is fourth with 27,667 recorded cases, followed by Algeria, which has seen 23,084 cases. Meanwhile, the countries with the most fatalities are South Africa, Egypt, Algeria, Nigeria, and Sudan. A top Kenyan politician has apologized for flouting a dusk to dawn curfew imposed to help stop the spread of the coronavirus. Nairobi Senator Johnson Sakaja was over the weekend found drinking at a club in the capital Nairobi hours past the curfew. He was briefly detained at a city police station before being released on free police bond. He is now due to appear in court on Tuesday, but says he's ready to take responsibility for his actions. He has also relinquished leadership of a key Senate committee that was overseeing the country's response to COVID-19. Kenyans have complained that these strict restriction measures are being applied selectively, with politicians openly flouting them by holding large meetings which have been outlawed. Meanwhile, a popular Kenyan actor, Charles Bukeko, has passed away at the age of 58. His wife says he died in a car while waiting for admission to a hospital in the capital, Nairobi. The actor has now been buried under strict COVID-19 regulations at his rural home in the west of the country. His wife, who revealed the details of his death, adds that he died from breathing complications. Abi Agina, Kenyan journalist with KTN, joins us now for more on the situation in the country. Abi, let's begin with the senator who is to be charged for flouting curfew. Is this, welcome development, especially among citizens who have complained that the strict restriction measures are being applied selectively?
Well, thank you for having me on the program. Indeed, this incident has really caught many Kenyans by surprise. They didn't see a time when a politician would be involved in such acts. Well, the opinions are quite divided amongst Kenyans. Some are really rooting for the detention of this politician, whereas in other quarters, a good cross-section of Kenyans are also of the view that the apology is significant, and the fact that the senator has stepped down from his position as a chair of an ad hoc committee that was handling COVID-19 is quite significant. But in a turn of events, it is a high-profile arrest that has been seeing many Kenyans talking about it. And of course, from the political circles, the various politicians have also weighed in and supporting this senator, saying that the step he's taking is quite significant in terms of showing and leading by example.
Well, what else are you hearing, ahead of his appearance in court tomorrow? Senator Sakaja has apologized, and like you mentioned, he has also relinquished leadership of a COVID-19 committee. At this stage, what consequences could he face as this case progresses?
Well, in regards to this case, the senator is likely to be charged with flouting the curfew hours. We don't really know what this will amount to. Will he be getting forced quarantine for 14 days? Will there be a figure that he'll be charged with in relation to being past curfew hours while being outside and he was not on official duty? On the other end of things, the other charges that might be leveled against this particular senator, of course, we did get allegations that he did tell the police that were arresting him that he would transfer them to different postings after 24 hours. This is a matter that might feature in court. Of course, the senator has declined, saying that he did not utter such words. Of course, video evidence shows to the contrary. But all this is but a question of time on how will the case be packaged in court tomorrow. It will be a high-profile case. Many Kenyans of course, the country will be following, as well as our fellow East Africans.
We'll have to wait and see about that tomorrow. But before I let you go, what more can you tell us about this unfortunate news about the actor Charles Bukeko, who's said to have died in his car while waiting for admission at hospital?
Well, the death of Mr. Bukeko did catch many Kenyans as a big blow to the creative industry. He is being mourned from all walks of life from the country. He is a man who had touched many souls. Some have characterized him as a mentor. Some have said he was a brilliant actor. And of course, he's also been eulogized significantly by the various players who are in the comedy industry as someone who led the path. But in regards to the allegations around did he die in the car, the wife, while addressing mourners today at the Busia home in Samia, that is in Western Kenya, the wife did indicate that they were together and the late Bukeko actually passed on as they were waiting to be attended to at the hospital. That is the version from the wife. Of course, Karen Hospital, which is one of the high-profile hospitals in the country and in the region, has refuted this and saying all these are mere allegations, and the late Charles Bukeko was actually admitted. They did 3 tests. One test was for COVID-19, the other test was for pneumonia, and the other one was for malaria. It is a matter that is still under investigations, and of course the father to the late also expressed his concern, saying that his late son did not die of COVID-19, contrary to what the hospital reports did indicate. So it is more of a wait and see, especially now that the emotions are still raw among most of the populace in the country.
All right, then, Abi Agina, Kenyan journalist, thank you so much for bringing us up to speed on the situation in Kenya. Now, park authorities say the economic impact of COVID-19 has caused a spike in poaching in the Democratic Republic of Congo, threatening the habitat of more than half the world's mountain gorillas, just as rangers are forced to reduce their presence to shield them from the virus. In April, suspected Hutu militiamen killed 16 people, including 12 rangers in Virunga National Park, in the deadliest attack in Virunga's recent history. The 7,800 square kilometer area was closed to tourists in March to help stop the spread of the coronavirus to the local community and the Great Apes. Higher food prices, fewer job opportunities, and a collapse of tourism revenues mean people living in and around the park have had to turn to the forest to survive, finding alternatives such as hunting for bushmeat.
Over the past few weeks, we've been registering an increase in the presence of snares in the mountain gorilla sector of Virunga. And then, unfortunately, last Friday, one of the gorillas was caught in one of those snares. There was a lot of commotion. The silverback wasn't happy, but they were able to act fast and effectively enough to be able to remove the snare and apply antibiotics treatment to the baby gorilla. So it was very successful, but nonetheless quite a risky, stressful operation because of the size and agitation of this 600-pound silverback gorilla. So for communities that are living, for the large part, in extreme poverty, that's extremely hard to bear, and they have to find alternatives. And unfortunately, wild meat, poaching, is one of those alternatives. Gorillas are genetically very close to human beings. They share most of our DNA, over 98%.
And that's Network Africa today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Teniola Shubowale. Bye for now.